Hello and welcome to The Stinger, a superfan's guide to Marvel, Star Wars, and much, much more in fandom entertainment. Joining me today, as always, today I've got two anchor beings with me on the podcast. It's Trent, Neely, and Joseph Snead. How are we doing, guys?
I'm going to Disneyland. That's how I'm doing.
Yeah, I'll just not do some cocaine because Feige said no.
They really made it like way too large of a point to tell you that they couldn't do cocaine in the movie. You know what I mean? Like it's okay. Once was enough. One mention was enough. Thank you all for being here today. If you haven't noticed, we are talking about Deadpool and Wolverine today. That's right. It's been out for a week, so I hope you've been able to see it. I'll throw up a spoiler warning now. Please turn this podcast off if you haven't watched Deadpool and Wolverine. And honestly, you've probably had it spoiled if you haven't watched it anyways, because the internet is ruthless. Thank you all for listening. As always, you can subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch this podcast on YouTube. So go subscribe to the Stinger Pod on YouTube, and then you can follow us on social media, on Instagram and on TikTok at the Stinger Pod. Guys, this is a big podcast today. We got a lot to talk about.
Big thing. Yeah.
I feel like this is, we've been building towards this all year long, knowing Deadpool and Wolverine was going to come out, and one way or another, we were going to talk about the future of the MCU. We were going to have this like mega blockbuster hit on our hands. And then, lo and behold, Marvel had to go schedule Comic-Con Hall H right after Deadpool and Wolverine came out. So not only are we reviewing Deadpool and Wolverine today, but we are also talking about the biggest news coming out of Comic-Con. We'll hit that at the end of the podcast. But guys, it's good to see both your faces. What's everybody's like hype levels of Deadpool and Wolverine heading? We've all seen the movie now. We're heading into. We've had a week to digest it. Like how are we feeling talking about Deadpool and Wolverine today?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because the project's announced and it's like, okay, Deadpool's coming to the MCU. And then we didn't hear anything. And then Ryan Reynolds did the surprise drop video where at like the very end, it was like, hey, Hugh, do you want to come back one more time? And he was like, sure. And they were like, yeah, Wolverine's coming back. And I was like, oh, but Logan's such a great end to that character. I don't know how that's going to be. And then I was just like, I don't know in general. And then the early buzz is like pretty good. Yep. And then I saw the movie and I was like, I had a great time. Ryan and Hugh were born to play these parts. Hugh especially like amazed me. Like this is probably, besides Logan, actually my favorite performance of him as Wolverine. I would even go that far.
Huh.
But there's stuff about this movie in terms of plot that is fascinating to talk about. That has generated, I feel like, a lot of discourse on the internet in the week since the movie's been released. And so there's definitely some things about the plot of this movie and the way it sort of unfolds structurally that I can't wait to get into with you guys.
Yeah, me too. There's a lot to break down. Joseph, how are you feeling at this point, a week removed from Deadpool and Wolverine?
I enjoyed it. It was a good time. Someone that grew up watching some of the X-Men animated show, I was like going insane that we got to get the yellow suit finally.
Yeah.
I don't know. That seems kind of shallow that's maybe my favorite part of the movie. But
that's okay.
But I was really excited with the yellow suit, not to the point where like some people were talking about they were like sobbing costume test. I wouldn't go that far. It was more just like, hey, this is really neat.
Yeah.
I mean, overall, I enjoyed the movie. Went and saw it with some friends here, and we all liked it. And I think, this is the kind of thing Marvel needed, and Deadpool joked about in the movie of like, hey, you're joining at a bit of a low point. We're going to try and bring this down. And, until the next Marvel project, probably, this is like the one that saves the MCU before something like Agatha kills it, and then Captain America brings it back, and then Ironheart kills it, and then Thunderbolts brings it back.
Right.
Whatever's next kills it. So
a perpetual doom cycle, honestly.
Doom?
Oh, I'll say just briefly for myself, objectively, I think this is a solid movie. I had a fun time, and I feel complicated about this movie. So I would love to get into specifics of that at some point. But first, before we do any of that, like, I mean, Joseph, you just kind of, nodded your head towards it. I feel like there was an expectation of the MCU will be different after Deadpool and Wolverine comes out. Like either we're so back or it's never been so over. And then there's also like the questions of, is it like plot wise, is it going to change the story that the MCU is going on? And I feel like this was about as low stakes as it gets in the grand scheme of things. I guess two questions would be like, one, do you think this re-energized the MCU? And two, were you expecting it to do more plot wise in the MCU?
I think it re-energized it in the sense that like this movie's already close to making $1 billion and it's been out a week.
Yeah.
Like I think like it definitively proved that like people do in fact still care about this universe enough to go see these movies.
Yep.
Which I think was honestly, it's surprising to say for Marvel. I think that was in question for a while. But it's like, no, it turns out when you get like two movie stars that people know, like outside of the movie itself, and that are also great as these characters, and they promote the movie and the movie's a good time, like people will go see it in theaters. Who would have thought? And so, yeah, in terms of its importance to the MCU, Joseph and I talked about this a little bit. Like Feige was like, on a scale of 1 to 10, this is like an 8 in terms of importance. Yeah. And I'm like, this is pure marketing by the guys.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely not. And like, that's fine. In fact, I think a lot of people the reason they like the movie is because it's so content just to exist on its own terms and not be connected to the larger narrative that it made it fun for people, that they were like, oh, I don't have to do homework for other MCU things. I am surprised we didn't get more proper, quote, like MCU characters in this besides Happy Hogan. Like, I thought we for sure were going to get at least like 1 or 2 and B-15.
What about
like,
Hunter B-15?
Yep, I forgot that for half a second.
Okay.
But yeah, I thought for sure we'd get like, if not like a heavy hitter, like one or two pretty well known MCU characters in it that we didn't get. And I'm not saying that's bad. I just think it's interesting for a movie that's like, this is Deadpool's announcement to the MCU. I think it was an interesting choice.
I think it's almost better to look at it not as like an MCU thing, but as like the real end of the Fox universe.
Yeah.
Because you had all these people come back from the Fox universe. I was a little surprised more of the main X-Men from that didn't come back, like Cyclops and Jean and Storm. And
I have thoughts
Beast
about
and
this
them,
that I will return to later.
Like, I mean, I hate to say it, but like the lame side characters that are like the side characters to the side characters.
Okay, sorry. Like, I don't mean to cut you off, but I have to ask this now while you just said this. So, did you guys know in the theater like who Electro was?
Yeah, but I never saw that movie.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Because I could tell in my screening, I was one of like 3 people who knew the significance of Jennifer Garner being there and Channing Tatum being there.
Okay.
Like most of my theater was like, they knew who the performers were, obviously, because Jennifer Garner and Channing Tatum are famous, but they were like, why are they in this movie as super beings?
They didn't hit the same way as Wesley Snipes.
My theater lost it for Wesley. That was like the only big pop I had in my screening. I had a pretty quiet screening, but that got like a for my screening.
Yep.
Yeah, and then the Chris Evans thing was kind of funny, and was probably one we should have expected. But this felt, and especially with the it's not like a mid-credits scene, but the little video that they played during the credits. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Seemed really like hey, it wasn't the best thing ever, but you know what?
We had a good time.
The X-Men had their place in building superheroes as like a movie genre.
Sure. Oh, for sure.
Like them and Spider-Man really kind of spearheaded what the modern comic book movie looks like.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wasn't there for like a really deep plot. I wanted to see Wolverine and Deadpool go get into shenanigans.
Yeah.
But the movie itself to the MCU, I mean, you could take a lot of the different threads of it. You could take the multiverse thread as a whole, and it didn't affect it because there's still an Earth 10,005. You can even do another story with like focused on the TVA, and you don't even have to mention this one, and it wouldn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
This is just like a little HR incident for B-15, who has kind of risen in the TVA since Loki, but is also not like the head of everything.
right.
So it's not like it was a very consequential movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be they don't want a movie that is limited in audience to be that much of a linchpin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it.
Oh, for sure.
You know, you're not taking the little ones to see the Deadpool movie that starts off with him murdering TVA agents with an adamantium skeleton.
Great opening, by the way. Like that's probably the best opening to a Marvel movie since like Guardians 1. Like
I have to say, like let's maybe get into the actual movie itself now, because guys, that opening sequence, I've never felt more like, you know, like you go into these movies now a little bit nervous, like, all right,
yeah,
like what are we gonna do here? And that first scene usually sets a pretty accurate tone of the rest of the movie. And when I saw that that's what they were doing, I was like, oh, we're back, baby. Like this is it. Like they know what they're doing and they're not taking their foot off the gas at all. Like what did y'all think about that opening scene?
Well, I was one of those people that's like, Logan's such a great work of art separate of superhero movies. Like, how are they going to do this? And I love the movie was like, we can't do it without desecrating its memory. So we're going to do it, but we're going to do it in a fun way by turning his skeleton into a literal like knife fest. And like, I'm like,
crazy.
Okay. Like that, like going that insane with the joke and the bit and having it literally be bye to Logan and the Fox universe. Like that meta joke as well. Like that. Like to be honest, in the moment of the theater, I was becoming the curmudgeon Muppets of like, this is just like a cynical needle drop to get the millennials. But as like by the end of the sequence, I'm like, no, this is like amazing and such a great gag. Like, so it won me over for sure.
As not an NSYNC fan, because it's not really our generation's music. Like I've heard the song before, but I found out later that all the little scenes that were intercut of Deadpool doing the dance moves were like the moves from the music video.
Yep.
That NSYNC did. And then I said, oh, well then that's hilarious.
Yes.
I don't know if it's funny or if he's doing the moves or not, but him like viciously murdering all these people and then it's intercut with him just doing these really weird dance moves. And then goes back to him like stabbing guys, you know, basically getting stuck with Wolverine's claws between two different guys' legs.
That was
crazy. They're
both just like, please kill me.
That might have been the most rated R moment of the movie. Like, and they put it right in those first few minutes. I was just like, whoa.
Probably from a pure physical standpoint.
Yeah, like that was crazy.
Yeah, because he's just like cutting people's heads off, using Wolverine's spine and head as nunchucks. The little thing where he skips his sword through the TVA agent's mouth.
Oh, yeah.
That was insane.
That was nuts.
Yeah. But it was really funny. So.
Yes.
It was hilarious.
It was quintessential Deadpool because they have that, like, the openings to Deadpool movies are kind of famous, right? Because it's the one on the highway with, like, the joke opening credits in the first one.
Yep.
And then there's a Celine Dion song in the second one. And I think this one's my favorite, although the first one's great because we didn't expect that at the time to like that you could do an opening credit like that. But this one's like the best way to evolve it, I think. So
I think so too. Absolutely, like this might have been my favorite scene in the whole movie, and so I was just like,
wow, started out strong, but that's interesting for the rest of your screening then.
I think it's the one other than the fight against the Deadpool core at the end that stuck with the most.
Yeah.
Or the Honda Accord fight.
I really like the first Deadpool and Wolverine fight a lot, actually.
So let's get into what are our favorite parts about this movie.
Okay, so the opening for sure. The first Deadpool and Wolverine fight I think was just great because I was like, that was the one where the like choreography felt the most planned out to me. I was like, I can see clearly what's going on, and you get great moments for both of them doing like signature move stuff. I like them versus the Deadpool core. However, like the mask was cool, guys, but like the CGI-ness of the mask like took me out of it. Anytime they I was like, then it makes me doubt that that it's physically Hugh at all. I'm like, so is that just CGI Hugh killing all these things on set, even if he worked really hard on the choreography? So like that kind of took me out of the whole scene. I'm not gonna lie. Even though I really did like that they just did a whole scene of like, let's throw in a Madonna song and murder a bunch of Deadpool variants. Like that as a joke is very funny. But yeah, so yeah, the opening, the first fight,
the hunt for all of the Wolverine variants.
That montage is great.
Yes,
the Henry Cavill cameo did get another big pop for my screening as well.
That got me good, guys. I did not see that one coming.
The Mission Impossible like fist pump reload for the
arm reload.
Yeah.
I'm trying to. I mean, yeah, and like the running gag about Gambit's accent, and like at one point Deadpool was just like, "Who is your dialect coach?" Like that. That was
Minions? Probably oh man, it's so good.
Yeah.
I came out of my daddy ready.
Oh, that was crazy.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's so many, like, a lot of it for me, like, the favorite moments are, like, the little things that I'll probably catch on rewatch, like, the little lines and the little jokes, more than, like, the scenes in the movie itself, which is, again, that's, like, this is a weird movie for me. Like, I like, there's issues, but there's so many little things I like about it.
So you brought up most of my favorite scenes, so I'll talk about them too. That the sequence of him hopping from timeline to find different Wolverines was amazing. The 5-2 Wolverine at the bar, my gosh, that was genius. Oh my gosh, that was genius to just like, you know, because I didn't realize it until watching something afterwards, but they were like, yeah, that was like a dig at people being like, we want a comic accurate Wolverine, and then
people were upset back in the day that Hugh Jackman was tall.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, who you want to be Wolverine? Danny DeVito? I mean, come on, guys.
Maybe that would have been kind of fun to watch too. But I
don't think we would have gotten Logan.
We get the one is like Hulk showing up. Even though it was for literally 0.2 seconds, that was great. I'm glad they threw that in there.
As a stand for the suits, I was a big fan of the brown and yellow suit too.
Yeah.
The costuming in general in this movie is on point. Like I like Deadpool's revamped suit a lot. I like the lighter reds and the black contrast. Like everything about the costumes is on point here.
I thought so too. The suits were really hitting all across the board in this one. But I would say honestly, my favorite. I wasn't as much of a fan of the first Deadpool Wolverine fight, but the Honda Accord fight.
That one's great just because of like the
Odyssey, whatever it was.
The jokes of like the metaphors of what that scene could be. Is
exactly.
PG way I can say this.
Yes.
It was so funny, and like we get 2 snippets of The Greatest Showman in the middle of that.
Genius, absolutely genius. And I just think, from a like, if you're gonna make those jokes and Disney's gonna sign off on it, like that's the way you do it. And then also to just like use that, like completely lay to waste that Honda Odyssey or whatever it was, and just like a fight scene that's confined into a small space like that. I just think it was really clever the way they
confined to a small space, but neither of them can die. So it's just like
Yep.
It was just like really, really clever to me that they decided to, keep everything within the 4 walls of that Honda. So yeah, really that was a bright spot for me. And then Channing Tatum, my goodness. And I did not know about the Channing Tatum not fan casting, real casting that just never happened. And so in the movie, I saw that and I'm like, whoa, they got Channing Tatum out here? That's crazy. And it wasn't until after that I learned that was because he was really cast. But guys, man, I have seen the little clip of him on TikTok so much already of him going, ooh, I'm about to make a name for myself today here. And I'm just oh my gosh, it's so good. Like it's just one of the funniest things to me watching him do that Cajun accent. And I'm like, gosh, Channing Tatum, just a comedy god. Like I think he's so underrated, and I wish we could see more of him in just a pure comedic role because he's fantastic.
Also, Blade throwing a direct headshot at Marvel for not making another Blade movie.
Yes,
which like I honestly like people have talked about. Like I can't believe like Feige and company allowed that because it's like you could argue that it's disrespectful to Mahershala Ali. Like
yes, yeah.
Like I know people who have, and so I don't want to like step on that too much. But I like in the moment for what it was, and honoring Wesley Snipes' legacy, because people have argued, like, historically, that first Blade movie was sort of that was really the beginning of the modern superhero movie resurgence. There was the the Joel Schumacher Batman era, and then there was nothing, and then there was Blade, and then that led directly to X-Men and Spider-Man. So.
Yeah. Yep.
So I was happy Wesley Snipes got to get a few $1 million and say some great lines. He got to say one of my favorite lines from Blade, which has a bad word in it, about people trying to ice skate uphill. But like Matt and I love that line from the first Blade movie so much.
Yeah, that the shot at Marshall or at Blade, just crazy. But
yep.
Joseph, what did you like? What were your favorite moments? Anything that we didn't talk about already?
Yeah, the mask worked for me on Wolverine, so I really enjoyed that one. Peter showing up at the end and everyone losing their mind.
Yeah, that was great.
That was
a great
awesome.
joke.
They're like, oh, he's like the coolest dude ever. And Peter is definitely not the coolest dude ever. I wish we'd gotten a little more Colossus, but I liked seeing Colossus, Yukio, and Negasonic Teenage Warhead for 5 minutes.
Yes.
I think we kind of covered the best parts of the movie. Obviously, Chris Evans coming back and not Captain America.
Yes,
was really good.
So good.
Like that one I sort of knew was coming, but the joke is set up so well in the movie where like when Ryan was just like he's gonna say Avengers Assemble, and then just the flame on, like and then he immediately just getting I wish I kind of hoped that like he was gonna die when Pyro extinguished him. I thought he was dead, and so I was like, weirdly, I was kind of bummed when he came back. I was like, it would have been even funnier if he actually just fell and died.
I agree. Yep. I agree.
But the post-credit scene that Deadpool may or may not have doctored is maybe the most Boston Chris Evans has gone in his entire career.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that Boston accent comes on thick, and that's
Yep.
Oh, it was great. It was fantastic. Yeah. That was I enjoyed that little the stinger that they threw on, but
yeah.
All right, what didn't work for us?
I mean, is this where we just get into like the fact that like this movie has no plot until it wants to, and then but then it still doesn't?
It was figuring out the plot the entire movie.
Like it was wild. And look, I feel okay saying that because Sean Levy and Ryan Reynolds, if you've seen them on the press tour at all, they've been like extremely transparent. That like they were like, we were trying to crack the story for Deadpool Wolverine. We couldn't do it, and they were literally about like they could be just marketing here, but they were like, we literally were gonna call Kevin on Monday and be like, hey, we need to like kick this down the road like 1 or 2 years to figure it out, and then Hugh agreed to do it, and they were like, oh, well, that changes everything.
Oh wow.
And so like it was literally Hugh like signing on that made them be like, I think we can make a story work. And look, also the reality, like, I think the strikes affected things here for sure.
Yeah.
Mainly in the fact of, like, Elektra, Blade, and Laura, like, just showing up. And then there's supposed to be this scene of, like, they're like, we're not going to fight Cassandra Nova. And then, like, 30 seconds later, they're like, actually, you know what? We are. And, like, it's supposed to be this big moment, but it's not. And
sounds like reshoots to me.
I remember in my screening when at the beginning the bye happens, the audience was feeling it in my screening, and then like there was like that 20-minute stretch of just Wade working as a car salesman, and one person in my screening literally like very audibly was like, "This is boring and terrible." Like actually said that out loud.
Oh wow.
And like the person was on their phone the rest of the movie. Now, granted, maybe that person didn't want to go to the movie to begin with and was dragged there. That could have totally happened, but I thought it was interesting that somebody was just like, "This is actually bad," like in the middle of the movie.
Well, that's an interesting point too, because I didn't watch Deadpool 2.
Okay.
I caught a recap of it before watching this movie. But was it weird to y'all having seen Deadpool 2 coming into this one and just like, they're not together anymore? Like all that whole plot line?
I purposely didn't rewatch either of them before seeing this one because I didn't want to be like Deadpooled out on Deadpool jokes. But I went back and watched both of them between watching the movie and doing this, and I was like, I was retroactively frustrated that like Deadpool 2 is all about him finding purpose after she dies, and then he brings her back through time travel, and then this movie is like, oh, he has no purpose again. I was like, huh? Like I was like that, like that, and then the Hugh Jackman's great performing it, but like the severity of Logan's backstory were like the two things that took me like way out of the movie. Like when Logan reveals what happened on his world, I was like, we were just having jokes about Chris Evans' flesh melting off, and now we're having this very serious scene of Logan being like, I committed like genocide against a group of like non-innocent but also innocent people, and that it took me way out. I'll be totally transparent.
That's fair.
It didn't really take me out. I've kind of been wondering where Laura came from.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because also she knows everything that happened in Logan, so it's not like she's a variant, but she had to get pruned to get there. So is there like a Fox universe that happened and then became a problem that like separated out at that point and branched, and then she got pruned?
Yeah.
So
it's really weird. And like I've heard from people like the TVA stuff is weird because apparently I've read and heard some stuff that like Mr. Paradox wasn't supposed to be a villain in the original versions of the script, and then he was, and like you can kind of tell.
Yes, because it's like the weirdest thing to me was him being like, "Oh, I had built this machine, and I'm trying to actually kill off your universe, but like help me anyways." Like I still don't quite understand. How is that his pitch? And it just it reeks of like there were some serious edits made to this.
And look, I should issue the statement that like because people have already said this like a million times. Like the movie is meant to be fun and it's a comedy and you shouldn't take it serious. And like I totally get that. And like as a pure comedy, I laughed a lot and had fun.
Yeah.
However, I do think the movie has moments like the ones we've talked about where it wants you to take it seriously, and that's a problem. I'm like, they should have just gone all the way. If they were going to be like, this is just a fun time and it doesn't matter, just go all that way then. I don't know why there's these scenes where they're like trying to do a deeper thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I think there's things you can do in like a Deadpool movie because you can make him relatable because his story is something like in the first movie, it's like, hey, this dude got cancer and then took a chance on an experimental treatment.
Yeah.
And it kind of ruined his life, but he found a way to make it work. And then, like you were talking about, of him trying to find purpose in the second one, making new friends like Cable and Yukio that just like have nothing to do with the movie anymore.
Yeah.
Especially Cable, who doesn't even show up.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a balance they can have with the comedy and the seriousness, because you see that in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies that do it really well for the most part. But yeah, I don't know. None of this stuff was really a problem for me. It's just kind of like, that was whatever. But it's kind of something where I fall into like, yeah, it's just a comedy, so I don't really care. But it doesn't do much for the story, if you even want to say this movie had a story.
Right.
But,
yeah. I think that's where to be honest, that's where my problems come into play here is like, I really felt like, I'll preface by saying, I think something else to consider is that the Jonathan Majors situation may have impacted the way this movie was written.
I've heard reports about this as well. That Kang was supposed to be a big part of this.
Yes. I heard a theory that, I don't know if it was a theory or a rumor or what, that like, the original plot was Paradox recruits Deadpool to go find anchor beings from other universes to defeat the Council of Kangs.
Mm-hmm.
And
that would make sense.
It feels like that's what this movie was meant to be, but they had to find a way to include all these other characters in it still. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'll be honest, I felt like the first third of the movie was like really, really good, and like the humor was landing for me. Every single joke hit. Some great action sequences. It was like giving you Deadpool and his the essence of what Ryan Reynolds is trying to do behind Deadpool, like full throttle, but also like marrying that with the MCU, with the existence of the TVA, which I thought was great. But I'm gonna be honest, like after that, it felt very much to me like the same problems that we talked about for Multiverse of Madness and for Thor: Love and Thunder, where the second act in the middle of the movie kind of just exists for us to squeeze some cameos in.
Yes.
And it's not, to me, it's like, I actually don't, I feel the same way where it's like, I had fun. I don't care that much that there wasn't like this strong emotional driving heartbeat of the movie. And I don't even care that much that it didn't make a ton of sense. I mean, I think it's still a problem,
Mm-hmm.
but I actually lost, like, I think I lost interest at moments of this movie.
Me too. Like literally, like the scene of what I was talking about, like Logan explaining his backstory to Laura. Like it was such a switch from the
Yeah.
tone of the movie up to that point. I literally like checked out because I was just like,
Yeah.
this is so different than what we've seen before that I missed some of what Logan was saying and had to look it up afterwards.
I did too. Legit same scene. I also
I was like, what are we doing? Like, am I supposed to be like, is this about his quest for redemption now? Like, and
Right.
I guess they do get there in the end, to be fair.
Yeah.
And then
But it was weird.
Yeah.
one thing I just thought of is like he tells Laura this backstory. He's like, I'm not going to fight with you guys. And they're like, okay. And they all drive there
Yeah.
in the Honda Odyssey.
Yeah.
Make it out and do their big team pose. They're like, I don't know if we're going to do this. And then like the trunk opens and Wolverine gets out, and I was like, did they not know he was back there?
Right.
Because I'm pretty sure there's a wide shot of them driving, and we, the audience, see him in the back.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
I was like, I feel like there's a different. That to me felt like a reshoot where like there was a second car at one point in the movie, and like Logan left the group actually, because otherwise that makes no sense. Like,
yeah, it doesn't.
and when that leads me to my last macro problem, where like Hugh and Ryan have both said like the reason they wanted to do this is like it's like we wanted to do a buddy comedy with Deadpool and Wolverine, and I think when the movie is about the two of them, that is true and that is awesome.
Yep.
The problem is there's so many scenes of like we have to get these cameos in and we have to give the audience time to react that like you don't get to see Deadpool and Logan react to each other that much except for the Odyssey fight. Like they're too busy looking at Johnny Storm getting his skin melted off. Like
right. And
Wolverine just like hating Deadpool for the whole time and then being like, you're all right, buddy.
Right, exactly. When to your point, there wasn't that much time together. And to bounce off that, I'm going to be honest, I didn't watch Blade. I didn't watch Elektra.
Sure.
I did not watch I have seen Logan and I've seen X-Men 1. So I have not seen, and I actually did a long time ago when I was young, I watched the original Fantastic Four with Chris Evans. That's been years, and I feel like there is a certain audience that loved every cameo like full-heartedly and was like super excited because they invested a lot of time in that cinematic universe specifically.
Yep.
And it's, to me, this is different than a Spider-Man No Way Home or an Avengers Endgame or something like that, because they're celebrating like actual good works of other superhero genre movies. There's a part of it that completely makes sense, that it's Deadpool that is like the character that gets to, revive all of these old forgotten characters as cameos. That thematically makes sense because that's who Deadpool is as a character.
Right.
But when you're doing it as cameos to like get a big reaction, I don't know. To me, it kind of just felt flat. I'm just like, am I supposed to be excited here? Like, I don't know.
I remember like on the Big Pictures podcast, they were talking about it with like the Midnight Boys, and there's like they talked about it's like it's insane that there's a joke in this movie that if you don't understand who Jennifer Garner was married to, and that she met Ben Affleck on Daredevil, like you don't get one of the jokes in Deadpool because they make a joke like, "Oh, sorry, Daredevil's not here," and she's like, "Oh, it's fine," and like
you don't get half of the jokes. Not even just. If you haven't seen Daredevil, if you didn't know the off-screen politicking of Channing Tatum as Gambit,
right?
You don't get like
a movie that never existed.
Yes, a movie that never existed. Exactly.
Yeah, and they make all these jokes like, "Man, I never got my chance," and "Oh, I'm gonna make a name for myself as this character," and then, but you don't get any of that, and that's not even like. Something with like Daredevil and Elektra, where some people may be more aware of them because they're like a big celebrity couple.
Yeah,
or they were. That's like, did you know Channing Tatum was cast as Gambit 10 years ago?
And that's a trivia question.
Yeah. So there's jokes like that, which there's jokes you don't always get in the other two Deadpool movies too, I think, but. it was.
Well, no, and like if I
It
can
was very focused on like some very niche stuff in this one.
Yes.
Well, if I was like to like, and this is me really putting on my cynical hat, like
Yeah.
knowingly for a second, like the whole thing of the movie is like, oh, like it ends with this like farewell to the 20th Century Fox universe and all this stuff, and isn't that like emotional that that's ending? And it's like, but like, A, Marvel was the one that purchased them. Like they did that, and then B, doesn't Hugh's appearance in this very movie prove that nobody is done if they don't want it to be done? Like, you know what I mean?
It does.
I mean, Professor X was in Multiverse of Madness,
Yeah.
Right.
and then Beast was in the Marvels. Spoilers, you know, for the large amount of people that didn't watch the Marvels. So, like, they're still popping up, which is a little weird.
And I
like,
promise
I
you, this is not the last time we see any of those characters.
Right. Like, and I tested this to Joseph. I was like, this made me respect, and Josh, you sort of alluded to it as well. Like, this made me respect No Way Home more because I know some people genuinely, they don't mean it in a mean way. They genuinely don't see a difference between the fan service between these two movies. But for me, it's like, But with Toby and Andrew, it was like they continued the arcs of their Spider-Man in that movie, and it was about how do they help Tom Holland realize something. Here, it's literally like Jennifer Garner's making jokes about Ben Affleck. It's not about advancing Elektra's arc or her helping Deadpool and Wolverine in any way. Like, this is literally like the cameo for the pure dopamine of the cameo. And that's like, if you're just trying to entertain the audience, that's fine. But like, I also understand why there's been like doomsday articles written of like, this is Marvel like resorting to like base impulse levels of storytelling.
Yeah. And then you have like the really obscure ones. Like, you have the bad Juggernaut, you know, the one that sucked from X-Men 3. You have, like, some other side villain, I think Callisto, that was, like, Magneto's...
Oh, Deathstrike,
well, no, Callisto's a different one, too.
Oh, okay.
But, like Deathstrike was in it, and I don't even really remember seeing her, so she wasn't in there for very long.
It's just the shot where they're all standing in front of the Ant-Man skull when it opens, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and then Azazel pops in, and when we left the movie theater, the guys I went with were like, I thought that was Nightcrawler, but he was red. So, oh, yeah, he was in X-Men First Class and then was never in anything else. And so I think some of those... They went really deep into the well, but didn't get like good cameos for like the villains.
Yeah.
Because and they even said Magneto, and they didn't bring a Magneto back. And they had either Ian McKellen or Michael Fassbender, who were both really good.
Yeah, great.
Oh no, the helmet got melted, and Cassandra like killed Professor Xavier, and so like the side cameos weren't like, I mean, except for Wesley Snipes, they weren't like beloved characters coming back. It was like,
which I get again, which I get was sort of the point and the joke of the movie is like, don't let yourselves be forgotten and like give yourselves the ending you deserve, but like, I don't know, like the movie that it's actually taking place in doesn't really set that up to me.
And I mean, if you want to do like the give the ending you deserve, like I'm cool with Jennifer Garner, but it's not like that character deserves anything because nobody cared for either the Daredevil movie or the Elektra movie.
Right.
Wesley Snipes, you know, yeah, I can see that for nobody cares about Channing Tatum as Gambit before this movie. They're just like, oh, you know, that's one of the what could have been, and then all of those villains. I mean, how many lines did they have between all of them in the movies they were in?
I mean, yeah. I mean, it was interesting that Pyro got the most screen time in this one.
Well, that's another thing too, because I just forgot about Pyro.
Yeah. Like he gets a handful of lines in the entire trilogy of the original X-Men.
He's randomly there on the orders of Paradox, and they never really do much with that. So.
Yeah, didn't understand that. Didn't understand how Paradox was communicating to the Void. I don't know.
He had like a flip phone to the Void.
Right.
I will say I think Laura was the one character people were like they would have watched more of at the time in 2017. People said that. And I think it was very deliberate that like she was the only person who got to like come back to Deadpool.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, they will 100% if they can justify and make like a movie or show with her and Hugh Jackman doing some mission together.
Well, she could be, if they really want to get crazy with their new X-Men, she could just be Wolverine.
Oh, that's true.
And you don't, and then you don't have the problem of
That's interesting.
Hugh Jackman. You just say, oh, this character that, I think it's pretty safe to say everyone loved Laura and Logan, and she didn't do anything to undo that goodwill in this movie.
No.
So just say, hey, this is going to be like an alternate X-Men to start, and she's Wolverine.
Yeah.
Because if they do an accurate X-Men adaptation, like we saw with X-Men 97, Wolverine's not that important.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think something else to remember about this too is this was way more of a Ryan Reynolds production, I think, than a Marvel Studios production.
Yeah, I remember the Midnight Boys made that statement so many times. They were like, how much like control do we think Kevin Feige had? And they all were like, none. Like,
Or
like they got his approval for stuff.
I think he had broad veto authority on stuff and story influence.
Right. I'm sure he told them what they could and couldn't do, but I don't think they were like consulting him of like, are you happy with this script to do this for the MCU? I don't think that level of planning went in.
Yeah.
I don't think he cared about the script as much as the overall story beats.
Yes.
Agreed.
Want to call it that.
No, I think this movie succeeded. I think Marvel was like, can we make a movie that like people think is fun? Because even the good ones like Wakanda Forever and Guardians 3, like they haven't been fun Marvel movies for a hot minute. And so I think they were like, can we make these fun?
Yeah.
And can we still excite people that like this will make a ton of money and get generally good enough reviews that people are like, okay, we're still invested in this thing. And I think they proved it.
Fun like Shang-Chi, which is like one of my favorites since they did Endgame.
Yeah.
Me too.
Shang-Chi might still be my favorite since they've done Endgame.
Easily forgotten at this point.
Because it's been so long.
It has. It totally has. And that's where this movie to me did what it needed. Because I think it was always unfair to view this movie as if it's not what it needs to be, then Marvel's done. Like that, like it clearly didn't take itself that seriously to be like, this is how we're going to steer the MCU narrative ship back on track, like
right.
It might have been viewed that way from a financial standpoint, which that I understand. Like they genuinely did need this to make a ton of money to continue their their phase 5 and 6 or whatever they're doing, but like from a narrative standpoint, no, this was never going to be the movie that like, restarted what the MCU was, trying to do post Endgame.
Right.
I think that's going to end up being Captain America.
Yeah.
Whether it's good or not is one thing, but I think that's going to be the one that pushes the narrative forward to where they want it to be.
Yes.
I completely agree.
100% agree.
From what the leaks were out of Comic-Con, that definitely seems to be the case. And I think so I was talking to a friend about this earlier this week. My last note with Deadpool and Wolverine is that it weirdly it had all of the vibes and tone and comedy of a Deadpool movie, but like Deadpool himself is not that important in this movie. At least that's the way we kind of interpreted it, where it's just like we didn't actually spend that much time with Deadpool the character, and like kind of I know there is a character arc there, but it didn't feel that substantial to me.
No, and it's weird.
Wolverine had much more of a character arc.
Right, and I was literally about to say, I was like, I feel like part of that is that like Ryan and company were so fixated on like making sure the Wolverine return was earned.
Yeah.
That Ryan did it at the expense of his own character. And like part of me like is like weirdly touched by that. I'm like, wow, that's like a selfless co-star right there.
It really is.
But also in a movie where Deadpool is one of the stars, that's still a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing. I'm curious / scared to rewatch it because I've heard some people that's like they've rewatched it and they're like, man, once I knew that it was like just a fun time and jokes, I had a great time. I've also heard some people rewatched it and they're like the like plot issues stuck out so hard that it took them out of it. Like they couldn't even watch it hardly in some ways.
Well, to be honest, I think what changed it for me was actually like I told y'all I watched this at a drive-in theater.
Sure.
And And when you're at a drive-in theater, you can't hear the people next to you reacting to stuff and laughing at jokes.
Yeah.
And I was laughing at a lot of jokes myself, but in terms of like cameo people are like shouting and cheering, there wasn't really any of that because you're outside and you're in your own car. And that genuinely like I almost like wonder if I had seen some of these previous Marvel movies like Multiverse of Madness, like what if I had watched that at a drive-in theater first? What would my thoughts have been? Would they have been different immediately after the movie? And I think that genuinely, like, if you're not in a theater watching Deadpool and Wolverine, I genuinely think you're going to have a different experience than the person that did watch it in the theater.
100%. And I think if you're somebody who loves the Fox movies, you're going to have a different experience than if you're somebody who like either tangentially likes them or doesn't like them much at all.
Yeah.
And then you can be like me and be like, hey, most of these are fine. Some of them are trash, but it's more of like hey, there's like 3 or 4 of them that are really, really good. And the rest I'm kind of like,
I was about to say, it's so bizarre because like a couple of them are genuinely like, I think in the running for worst superhero movie ever. And then like 2 of them are like in the running for best superhero movie ever. And I'm like, that's such a, like the fact that it's both ends of the pendulum is insane.
It is. Because not even the DC universe could do that, you know? Like, I don't think you have...
Even, like, me loving the Suicide Squad, I wouldn't say that that's, like, a top 5 superhero movie ever.
No.
Yeah, and then, like, what would we say the peak quality movies of that would be? Like, the first Wonder Woman, which was good.
Yep. It was good, but it wasn't top 5.
Like, earth-shattering as a movie, and I think the victory of that one was showing like, hey, audiences are going to go see a superhero movie led by Wonder Woman or any woman in general.
Right.
And it showed that could work. But as far as like the quality of the movie is like, this one is pretty good.
Yeah. Yep.
And then you have something like the first Suicide Squad, which is bad, but isn't like the worst one ever.
It might be close.
Yeah, it's close. It's definitely pretty bad.
I have wondered, I'm like, if we got really ambitious one day and we ranked every live action superhero movie, like all of them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I don't think I could do that one.
That might break us. We'd have to start at the top because there's no way we could make it through by starting at the bottom. You know?
No. Right. Or like we could do it where like we do an other podcast episode and then we'd reveal random numbers. Like we'd be like,
oh, that's kind of I don't mind that.
We pull Catwoman first, and I'm like, I'm retired from this thing. I can't do it.
That's it. I'm hanging up the boots.
Guys, I gotta say, it was I watched Elektra for the first time the other day, and it was fascinating. Like I don't want to get into like this movie's bad. Like people know its reputation. However, it's fascinating as a document of like before we'd figured out what superhero movies were, as like an early 2000s thing. It was a fascinating historical document, is all I will say. And I watched the Fantastic Four from 2015. Also, a fascinating historical document.
That movie sucks.
That one's really bad.
It's so interesting sorry, go ahead, Joseph.
Well, then I was going to say we have throwbacks to that area from what I've heard with Morbius and Madam Web.
I'm going to say it again. Madam Web, weirdly watchable. Not great, but like Emily, Matt, and I were able to get it start to finish and be like, I see 2 avenues they were trying to go for, and instead of picking one, they went kind of for both, and it makes the movie feel weird.
And they crashed at the median in the middle.
Yeah, literally.
Soon we'll add Craven to that pile of trash.
Oh man, that's poor Craven. One last question I think is the return of Hugh Jackman. All right, we've talked about it a bunch, but like, are you guys glad that Hugh Jackman came back as Wolverine for this movie?
Like I said, I thought his performance was genuinely great in this. Like he
Me
created
too.
A version of the character that had core traits that I remembered from his original portrayal, but also felt like entirely different. Not just in the costume, but like emotionally and psychologically.
Yep.
And so if he he says that he's like re-energized to play the role, and if he wants to do it for like another like 5 or 10 years, I'm happy. Like they have completely sold me on that part. I was so nervous when they announced it, but now I'm all the way back in. I'm like,
Well,
yes, only Hugh Jackman can play this as long as he wants, and then
Yeah.
Well, he's going to play it till he's 90, like the movie told us.
That's right. That's right.
true. They did tell us.
They did.
It worked for me. I liked it. I mean, still, even seeing Henry Cavill as Wolverine, I was like, that's not Wolverine.
Yeah.
But it was funny. But that wasn't Wolverine.
It was funny.
It's still, he's still in that like Iron Man territory of like, yeah, I still don't see anybody else that can do this.
Yep.
It's gonna be weird because we're getting really close to them needing a new Wolverine. So I don't know. It's gonna be weird once we get there. I felt like, and this is as someone who's only seen Wolverine in 2 movies. So I've only seen the first X-Men and Logan, and I don't feel like a legacy was tarnished by him coming back for this movie.
They created.
It felt like its own thing. It felt like its own thing to me, and also like he's fantastic as Wolverine.
He's so good. Like I was sitting in the theater being like, he is literally so good as this character. It's like eerie how good he is.
Yeah. He's just got such a mastery over it. So I just like, I'm more of like, I'm glad this was here. I don't feel like neutral about it. I'm like, no, this was worth them doing. Whether
it was similar to the validation I felt watching Andrew Garfield in No Way Home being like, this is the best actor to play Spider-Man to me. Like,
man, that's crazy. Yeah.
It was, well, I know.
Well, if you're just saying best actor to play Spider-Man, that's not crazy.
Yes, that's not the best movies, but I think as a portrayal of Peter Parker and Spider-Man, I think
wait. So hold on. Are you saying he's the best? Andrew Garfield's the best actor that has played Spider-Man, or are you saying Andrew Garfield's portrayal of Peter Parker is the best Peter Parker portrayal?
I'm saying both.
Oh, all right, that's different. Okay,
I think he's the only person who has mastered the meekness of Peter Parker and the confidence of Spider-Man, and those are 2 different things that I don't. I definitely don't think Tobey ever even really got a chance to try, unfortunately.
Yeah,
and Tom Holland hasn't perfectly figured out.
Interesting.
I don't know if I agree, but I don't really disagree strongly.
Same.
I do think you can definitely make the argument that from an acting perspective, it's Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, he's the best actor. He's the best.
I think you can easily make that argument.
Well, there we go.
Tobey Maguire is kind of, he's kind of who he is at this point. And Tom Holland, I don't think has really shown.
Uncharted didn't really pop off.
I'm not saying he can't do it. I just don't think he's done it yet.
No, he's gonna be Spider-Man for 10 more years. Like Tom Holland,
Andrew Garfield's been like Oscar nominated, right?
Yeah. Hacksaw Ridge.
Tick, Boom.
And
Hacksaw Ridge, both, I think.
Yeah, I forgot about Tick Tick Boom. That's right. All right, let's wrap up with some grades, and then we'll hit Comic-Con news. So, Trent, what is your grade for this movie? And closing thoughts.
Closing thoughts. I feel like I ragged on this movie a bunch, but again, Ryan and Hugh are perfect, genuinely perfect in their respective roles. The action's good. A lot of the jokes hit, and for people just wanting to see a comedy, that's the main thing. The plot of this is kind of nonsense, but how much that bothers you, I think that's going to vary person to person. So I think today I'm sitting at like a B, maybe tucked into a B plus on any given day, but somewhere around there is where I'm sitting.
Okay. Joseph.
Yeah, I'd probably hang out in B territory. I'm like, I went to the movies expecting to have a good time, and I did. So, this also isn't a movie you judge as hard as some other ones.
Sure.
Because it kind of knows what it's trying to do, and it also knows, for the most part, what it's not trying to do. Like, I don't think there's anything in this movie that said, like, we really want to give you a deep message about something, and it was just kind of like, it's a Deadpool movie. You know what you're getting with this. It's going to be really violent, kind of vulgar, and I've described it to some people though as like, I think this is the cleanest Deadpool, which doesn't say a lot, but
having rewatched the other 2, I think that's true.
I think it's the tamest of the three.
Even though I think it says the F word more than the first two combined they've revealed, but like
Yeah, but the some of the other content is
yes,
not in this one that's in the other two.
I
Yes.
100% agree.
Yep.
So, especially the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll give it a B.
Here's how I feel. Like, this movie, I think, did prove that Marvel could create a hit again.
Yes.
And again, how much you want to credit that to Ryan Reynolds and how much you want to credit that to Kevin Feige and Marvel, I don't know. That's a little more complicated. However, I feel like when I thought this movie was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Not everything worked for me, and I think the middle of the movie really meandered most of the time for me. I think it's got some great action. Hugh Jackman is awesome. I love seeing him in the yellow suit and doing his thing, and it made me laugh, and it genuinely made me laugh. I think when I compare this movie to, what Marvel has been recently, when I think about like an Ant-Man and the Wasp or the Marvels or Thor: Love and Thunder, it has a lot of the same problems, but I enjoyed my time watching it more than I did with some of these other movies.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like I'm going to lean B- here.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like that's might be as generous as I can get. It's just it's a B-. I think I may rewatch this, but it's not like a go-to. And hey, financially, it made a ton of money, so Marvel's got what they need for the future now. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think that does it on our Deadpool and Wolverine talks.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, we're not done yet.
No, there's one last little thing.
Marvel certainly wasn't done yet. There's a lot of Comic-Con news, and originally we were thinking about, like, are we going to talk about all Comic-Con stuff? There wasn't nearly anything as big as what we're going to talk about tonight. So we figured there's one thing we have to talk about as a group that I can honestly feel like I can say the three of us have not talked about this yet. This is, really the first time we're going in deep on this decision.
Yeah.
So you may have seen a news headline or two, seen something on social media that's announced that Marvel Studios is making 2 new Avengers movies. They're bringing back Joe and Anthony Russo to direct them. The first one is called Avengers Doomsday. The second one, Avengers Secret Wars. Avengers Doomsday was Avengers King Dynasty. It is now retitled Avengers Doomsday because Dr. Doom is the villain. And who is playing Dr. Doom? None other than Robert Downey Jr. himself. He is returning off of his Oscar win, coming in hot off of Oppenheimer, and he is going to play presumably Victor Von Doom. I don't know how accurate that is. I do know that he will be playing Dr. Doom, the villain. Guys, how do we, like, we had some reactions, I feel like, in our group chat, but now it's sat with us for a while. Like, what do we think about this decision?
So I have to say, like, it was so funny because, like, I saw Deadpool and Wolverine on the Saturday that Comic-Con was happening and the Marvel's panel was happening. So I'm literally riding home, and I had literally just refreshed my Twitter feed, or X, whatever, and it was like the news about, Thunderbolts and whatever, all that stuff. And I was like, okay, I got all the news for the night. And then Joseph sent a text to our group that was like, something happened.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, did I miss it? And then I refreshed, and I was like, they were like, Robert Downey Jr. has returned as Dr. Doom. And I was like, surely this is the Onion. Like, I was convinced.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not saying that because I think, like, it's a terrible, like, my brain was like, there's no way that they're doing this. And so I thought it was fake for the longest time. And then, like, they released the actual video from Hall H and all this stuff.
Yep.
And, like, Robert Downey Jr. posted on it. And so the night it happened, I was kind of in a bad mood because I didn't know how I felt about all the cameo-y stuff in Deadpool and Wolverine. So that already had me in a weird headspace about, like, fan service. And I was like, oh, we are in full, like, break in case of emergency button at Marvel Studios. Like, we got to bring back Downey. But, like, the more I've sat with this and calmed down, I'm like, on the other hand, Like Downey is a great actor. We just saw this with Oppenheimer, and there's been stuff pre his MCU days. Like this is a good actor.
Yep.
Like I'm genuinely happy the Russos are back. That's like a full stop call. I'm like that was the
Yeah.
correct decision for these
Yes.
movies, 100%. But back to the Downey thing. I decided that I would rather it be this than he comes back as Tony Stark. Like
Yes.
Like if I had to pick my poison of how he is coming back into the Marvel world, I think this is good. My main thing is two things. A, I hope that he actually gets to play a version of Victor Von Doom and not just like Tony Stark quote, but evil. Like I don't want it to be that.
Yeah.
And then number two, I honestly believe that people freaking out about this of like he's ruining his legacy, he's going to do this for 10 years. I do not think that Robert Downey Jr. will be playing this character past at most these two movies. I think the rumors of this being Secret Wars being a Marvel reset are true, and that at some point in one of these two movies it will be like actually the universe is reset and this actor like Cillian Murphy, for example, is Victor Von Doom now. So I think all these people who are clutching pearls about Robert Downey being stuck in Marvel for 10 years can like breathe a sigh of relief. It will be okay. That's my main takeaways from this.
Interesting.
I think Downey's legacy as Iron Man is cemented.
Yeah.
Maybe more so than Hugh Jackman's as Wolverine. So I don't think anything he does to come back is going to like soil the legacy of it. I'm with you, Trent, though. I really don't want this to be Tony Stark, but evil. I really want him to play like a completely different type of character.
Like he could play a version of his Oppenheimer character as Doom.
Yeah.
I was like, that would be interesting because that character has some of that energy to him.
Yeah, so I mean, I hope he's not just like. Basically, I hope he's not Ultron.
Yes,
because Ultron is like evil Tony Stark.
Yep.
I'm cautiously optimistic about it. I do think it could still be that break glass in case of emergency. Because it's like, oh no, we're in trouble. Lost our Kang actor who was supposed to be like the linchpin of this entire multiverse saga. And for some reason, we can't just recast Kang, who has like a million variants. Whatever. We're just going to go to Doctor Doom. And I'm glad they brought McFeely back as the writer.
Yep.
Kind of sad it's not both of them.
Yeah.
But I think that they have the team in place. It's just going to be how do they execute it? Because they pretty much got to do in Doomsday what they did with Thanos in Infinity War.
Yep.
And build him up as like, okay, I understand this character and his motivations, and he's not just like Dr. Evil.
Yes.
Dr. Doom, which is a stupid name, but I kind of like the stupid names. I was thinking earlier, I wish Star Wars would get back to stupid names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But cautiously optimistic. Just kind of need to see how it plays out.
Yeah, so my thoughts are this is 100% a break glass in case of emergency situation. Like, I don't think there's any other way to put it. They know that the track record for them over the last few years is rough.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan Majors, they can't bring him back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, do you want to sell the audience on... I feel like they also know the Kang storyline wasn't connecting. And so I
There's
think
jokes in Deadpool about like how the multiverse like sucks as a concept.
Yes.
So like
Yes.
the fact that joke got approved means that they know. They're like,
They know.
okay, you guys don't really like the multiverse that much.
Exactly. And so to me, this is 100% a reactionary move. I don't think that there is a real, at least I just, it would be very optimistic to believe that they have a surefire plan right now about these two movies and about Doctor Doom specifically in them. I think they have an idea, but like, I don't think, I think this is a reactionary move. But I say all this and like, it may sound like I'm painting a bleak picture, but I actually think this is going to work.
Yeah.
Like I genuinely think this is going to work. Robert Downey Jr. is too talented. The Russo brothers have great chemistry with him and the experience of putting together these kinds of colossal movies that I don't think you need 10 previous movies of like proof of concept or a storyline to follow that Avengers Infinity War and Endgame needed. I think they can kind of come right in and cook with Doomsday and Secret Wars and create a really stellar story for that, and make that an event movie. There's a rumor this week that the 2 movies that come out in between these 2 Avengers movies are going to take place in Battleworld. I'm not sure if either of you saw that, but essentially, like, the story from Doomsday would continue all the way to Secret Wars with the inclusion of 2 separate Marvel property movies.
Oh, that would be very interesting.
And I think that's an interesting idea if they want to do it that way. But here my concern is that I've thought a lot about this, so my thoughts are numerous on this. But my fear is that Doctor Doom is an extremely important character, and if we've already used Thanos and we've already used Kang, I think when people talk about big bads in Marvel, like, the 2 left are Doctor Doom and Galactus, and we know we're getting Galactus in Fantastic Four, and we know that Doctor Doom is going now to be the villain in these 2 movies, and I agree with you, Trent. I don't think Robert Downey Jr. is playing this character for 10 more years. But I do wonder, if you have plans to use Doom after this, are people going to take that seriously when they've already seen a version of Doom as RDJ playing him?
Yeah, I don't know. That's like the fascinating part to me. Like that question right there.
Yeah. Like,
and I think
go ahead.
I mean, they have Galactus there if they wanted a big threat too. If they wanted to save Doctor Doom. So, I mean, they could have even had, like, Avengers Galactus or whatever they would call it. Because the rumor I've heard about Galactus is he's like... What's the girl's name in Doctor Strange?
Yes, I know. America Chavez?
Christine?
Yeah. No. It was America Chavez.
Okay.
Where she's like the only version of herself across the multiverse.
Yeah.
I've heard the rumor that that's what Galactus is too. There's like one Galactus.
Nice.
Yep.
And so, I mean, that seems bigger than just the Fantastic Four of one universe taken care of. But yeah, I don't know where they go. I think they do focus. I think they go hardcore on mutants after Secret Wars, because I mean that's what you have to do at that point.
Yep. Oh yeah, I think
you have Magneto, you have Mr. Sinister. I mean, you could do the Apocalypse saga.
You could
if you wanted to. So, but those are your main villains you've got left that haven't kind of taken up the MCU before you start kind of reaching for some other stuff.
No, I mean, I think we're firmly in, like, we've gone from the multiverse saga to we're in this subset now of the fan service saga. Yes. They're like, I honestly think, genuinely in my heart, like, they're like, we're bringing Downey as Doctor Doom. Like, you guys are, like, since they weren't in Deadpool and Wolverine, I think we're going to see, like, James Marsden as Cyclops and all those original X-Men in this movie, because people have been making memes about, like, Toby and Hugh Jackman being on screen together. I think that will happen in one of these 2. And I think Feige's like, okay, let's put all the fan service in these 2 movies to get people invested, and, like, we're going to reset the universe. And then he's going to reboot it all with X-Men, which is, like, the very first thing he produced in his career. And I think that'll be his, like, full circle journey moment.
And even with the X-Men, you can make Avengers 7 be like Avengers 7.
I know.
Avengers versus X-Men as you build that up.
Yep.
Right.
You totally could. So there's another... Y'all, you 2 may know the knowledge behind this to confirm or deny this, but this is something else I've been thinking about a lot, because obviously, like, they're trying to get to X-Men, and the multiverse saga, it seemed like that was the, like, clear direction that, like, Kevin Feige and company, they wanted to move forward with the multiverse saga. Like, this is the next thing to build towards, and at this point in time, it's really starting to not seem like that. What I was remembering is, I could be wrong, but when Disney acquired Fox, I'm pretty sure there's a stipulation that, like, you cannot recast the X-Men characters until 2028 or something like that.
I thought it was it did have a time. I thought it was 25.
25. Okay. So that might be more accurate.
I think it is within the time frame of like Doomsday and Secret Wars, which would make sense.
Okay.
The pivot now.
So maybe it was 2025 instead, but they definitely had a stipulation that like
They did.
cannot you have to use the cast that we've already selected. I kind of think
It's like a weird thing to have in a deal, but
I think it was because McAvoy and like Fassbender in particular, like they had just renewed their contracts when the merger had happened. And so legally they were like, you can put these actors out of work if you're going to use them like instantly, was what it was there for.
and that makes me think maybe that was the point of the multiverse saga all along. Like I almost wonder, did they want to go straight to X-Men after Endgame from the start, but that literal one stipulation kept them from doing it?
Oh, that's interesting.
And
I
so
wonder if that'll be a bombshell in like the Kevin Feige memoir in
it
like
might.
30 years.
I mean, like I think the multiverse saga failed for a lot of reasons. One, you had COVID, you have a writer strike thrown in there, and you have the like balls to the wall streaming war that caused them to, make way more content than they needed to make. And higher ups at Disney was like, hey, Marvel Studios, you have to make X amount of shows a year and X amount of movies a year. All that stuff,
And your Thanos of this saga is like a scumbag.
Right, exactly.
So,
yeah. And so, but I just wonder if from the start they were like, all right, we have to bridge the gap here. Like we have to find, and it doesn't, and like we don't have a good story to tell here, so we got to find our way there along the way, and just hope that it's good until we get to X-Men.
I don't know.
Honestly,
at a bare minimum. Sorry, Joseph, go ahead.
The early stuff of Marvel was kind of like amazing how they did just kind of like find their way into good stuff.
Yeah.
And so now it's like they're trying to do that, but it's not working.
Right. Well, I saw somebody post about this week actually, where it was like, I can't believe they're keeping the Avengers date, but they haven't announced Doctor Strange 3 yet, because like the postcards in Doctor Strange 2 was him going off with Cleo and being like, incursions are a thing.
Yeah.
And like that seemed to be the move of like, hey, in the next Doctor Strange thing, we will set up like the actual hard rules of what the multiverse is, and like Strange will be in charge of managing all that. And so like the fact that they're just like, never mind, we got to go right to Doctor Doom, but like, is Doctor Strange 3 going to happen before then? Like, I have no idea. Is Shang-Chi 2 going to happen when that was like the most successful new character introduced post Endgame? I have no idea. Like,
if the rumor that I read was true, that there's going to be like connecting movies and that take place in Battleworld, I think those will be the movies that happens in Battleworld. Like I think they'll say like those are things that we can do a multiverse movie with, so we're just going to do those.
Poor Simu Liu is fighting for his life. Like on Twitter all the time, people are asking him about it, and he was like, they're working on it, and news is coming like soon. And everybody was like, oh, for sure they'll say something at Comic-Con, and then they didn't. And every day he's just like, soon, guys.
There was that leak a while back that was like, oh, the second Shang-Chi movie is going to be Shang-Chi and the Wreckage of Time. And Doctor Strange, Time Runs Out, maybe. And they're going to be big parts of the multiverse saga. And as I'm thinking about this, as all these multiverses are crashing together, I'm like, you don't really even need a big villain behind it.
No.
You can just have all these universes crashing together. And the Avengers have to figure out a way to save something.
Yeah, it's like an MCU natural disaster movie. Like the villain is the circumstances that are happening,
Sure.
Yeah, you could even have something like really impersonal, like Goliath or something, getting out of the void. And,
yeah.
I mean, maybe you have Galactus consuming universes and is just like not really a villain, but they're like, okay, let's just like trap him somewhere.
Yeah.
And then move on. But I don't think you need Doctor Doom to have this unless you're just saying like, we are doing Secret Wars. And that's what it's going to be.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's so clear at this point. Secret Wars is the reboot. Like we are trying to do the fan service thing. We're trying to get the most bang for a buck that we possibly can, and then everything's reset.
Well, look, and here's the hard truth, right? Even if Doomsday is bad, that movie will still make $500 million opening week, because everybody is like, I want to see what Downey did.
Yeah,
like whether the movie, it'll just happen. Like,
and it's in 2 years. Like I think people have put all this pressure on Deadpool and Wolverine. Like it's got to save superhero movies. It made a ton of money, but I can tell you, like in 2 years, we're not going to be that changed as a as a movie going society to be like, I don't want to see the Avengers movie, because we're going to be like choosing between the new Avengers movie and the Mandalorian movie and Shrek 5 and Toy Story 5, and it's just like, this is the world we live in right now.
Yes.
So it's I've never been more convinced that like it's gonna be fine from a superhero storytelling standpoint until something dramatic changes around the movie industry, because this is just what it is right now.
Well, no, and it's weirdly refreshing for Marvel, like to me anyway. I don't know about you guys, but like for Marvel to admit without admitting that they have no plan for once.
Yeah.
Instead of Kevin Feige being like, we've had the next 20 years mapped out, I'm like, oh, you guys are really figuring it out as you go along, and like that's okay. Like I'm not saying that as a diss. Like I'm like, just focus on making the best things that you can make in real time, and that's fine. Like,
it's like, guys, you're like 35 movies in, and DC's still trying to make a good Superman movie. I mean,
exactly.
I think you're good.
Yeah. And look, like I said, I like Robert Downey, and like I was reading a statistic that like the reveal video of him is already like the 15th, I think, most viewed video on Instagram of all time.
No
so it's
way,
like,
man, that's crazy.
Like like people are paying attention.
Yeah.
Whether it's good or bad, people are paying attention. So like it already is a success, probably in some ways, as Marvel is concerned.
Yeah, I agree. So we're all like relatively thumbs up on this. It sounds like.
Yeah, like I would say like cautiously.
That's
maybe
a
not
good angle. Great.
Yeah, like maybe not like cautiously optimistic might be a little strong, but somewhere in that neighborhood where I'm like, these are talented people who have made good versions of this before.
Yeah.
So there's no reason to think inherently that it should be bad.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's any reason to believe. I don't think you can believe 100% that it's going to be good or bad. It's just like, okay,
we know literally nothing. Like they literally like just put up a title card and said, "Hey, Robert Downey's going to be in this."
Right,
and like,
right, exactly. Well, I think that's going to wrap it for our episode today. We got a lot of thoughts out. There's a lot to talk about. We'll have more to talk about too. So, as always, subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on social media at The Stinger Pod. It will be back soon. We're going to be talking some Star Wars very soon. So we'll be back. Thank you all so much for listening.